I spent 3 years trying to speak a language I could barely understand, through textbooks, grammar rules, and what was the result? After 3 years, I could barely understand a very basic dialogue in Korean. I was very frustrated, and then I searched for another method and I discovered listening comprehension. And at this moment, everything changed. We all focus on speaking practice, memorizing sentences, grammar rules, flashcards, but we can barely understand a native speaker at normal speed. The problem is we are building a house without a proper foundation. We cannot speak what we cannot hear. Today, I'm showing you why listening comprehension is the master key to unlock fluency and the proper methods to develop it. Why listening comprehension is the first thing you should work on. When you learn a foreign language, you are actually learning a complex skill that is composed of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. If one of your main goals is to speak with a native speaker or someone speaking in the target language you want to learn, you have to first understand what the other person is telling you through listening, and then you have to be able to speak with that person in this language. And so there is an order. If you focus first on speaking, you will not be able to understand what the other person is going to say to you. So the conversation will be over like in 30 seconds. So there is an order to respect. First, you have to understand what the other person is saying to you through listening. Then you can focus on your ability to speak. And at the end, in order to improve your vocabulary and the fluency, you should focus on reading and writing. And regarding myself, it was a very big frustration because when I was learning Korean at my beginnings for the first years, I didn't focus at all on listening. I focused on reading text, writing, making the writing exercise of my textbooks, focusing on the grammar rules. And so all of that was improving the comprehension of the language, but not the listening comprehension. The day that I want to speak with someone, I'm not able to do that because I didn't focus on the right thing. So there is an order. Listening comprehension is the key because it will be the first skill that will enable you to first understand the person, and this is the first thing you want to focus before practicing your speaking skills. Do you remember how you learned your first language? No, you don't, but your parents do. It was just through pure immersion, months and even years of listening practice, through what your parents were saying to you or other people. And so at the end, you were able to speak your first word maybe around 1 year old and your first sentences at 2 years old. And when you were a baby, there was no grammar, no vocabulary, just listening practice, pure immersion, thanks to your parents especially. And listening comprehension happened through you asking to your parents, what is that? What is that, mommy? Oh, this is a plane, my dear. Oh, what is that? This is a car. You have to be careful. And it was like that. By asking your parents, what is that? What is that? That you develop the comprehension of what your parents were telling you. And then, when you were 10 years old, like me, I knew already how to listen, how to speak, and then I learned how to read, how to write at school when I was 10 years old. How can we copy a child learning his mother tongue? Of course, you cannot do some immersion. You don't have a parent in the target language at disposal in order to learn the new words that you don't understand. So the solution is going through exposing yourself to listening content. And now in 2025, you don't have any excuses. You have YouTube, you have internet, maybe special websites. You can find any content that you like at the level you want in order to practice your listening skills. And what you have to do is very simple. You have to practice what we call active listening. You choose the content, you cut all the external distraction, you put all your focus on the content, and you try to understand more than before listening to the content. So if you are a beginner or even an intermediate learner, when you practice active listening or listening comprehension, you just have to focus on understanding what you are actually listening. This is going to take time. You're not going to understand everything at the first time, and that's okay. Your main goal is to keep doing this exercise again and again with some new contents, with content that you have already listened, and each time try to understand a bit more. If you keep practicing this skill, at the end, you are going to understand everything of the content you are actually listening. Let's say you have a sponge, a dry sponge, and you want to let some water flows on it. First, the sponge is going to remain dry. And as the water is going to keep flowing on the sponge will be water. And at the end, the sponge will be full water. And this is going to be the same with listening comprehension. At the beginning, it's difficult. You don't understand a lot of things. But if you keep doing the exercise again and again and again, you are going to understand a lot more. And at the end, you are going to fully understand your listening content. And that's what you want in your learning journey as a first exercise. What I notice when learning a language is that listening a lot is the key. You have to increase your listening volume in order to fully understand at the end what the other person is going to say to you. So how can we increase our listening volume? Maybe you don't have 3 hours per day to spare in order to actively listen to some content, and that's okay. What I recommend you is not to take a new content that you never actively listen, to passively listen to it. No, don't do that. Rather, keep a library of the content you have already listened, and when you go outside, when you are cooking, when you are cleaning your house, just listen to the content you have already listened. What is going to happen when you are going to remember some sentences? You're going to say, oh yeah, I remember this was this scene, or this was this word. You are going to be already familiar with the content and build maybe a little bit more your listening skills. But I should warn you that just listening passively will not be the key at all in order to build your listening skill. This will be rather like a complement to the main exercise of active listening. So in order to conclude this video, we think that listening is the first skills to master when you are talking with someone. If you don't understand what the other person is saying to you, that's going to be a big problem. So you will address that by learning how to listen. In order to do that, you will use active listening that will improve your comprehension. And in order to build your listening volume, you could also add some passive listening to your daily practice. This is actually the process I'm currently following with my Korean learning journey, from understanding some very basic conversation to podcasts of native speakers that could last more than 30 minutes or even 1 hour. I hope this video can give you some insight about listening comprehension. If you have any question, please let them in the comments below. I will try my best to answer them. If you like this video, please give me a like, support, and subscribe to my channel. See you soon. Bye.